It is certainly a changing and ever challenging landscape in college athletics. And one of the main linchpins in making that sense of it all would be the athletic director at any one of the major schools. And we are so happy to be joined by Wren Baker, the vice president and athletics director at West Virginia University. Wren, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. I've heard great things about you guys. Even some of the guys in Waco was saying good things the other day. I was on with them. So it's a pleasure to join you, and look forward to having a great conversation.
And we're also joined, of course, by Golden Blue Dude, and certainly join his coverage there on Golden Blue Dude right here on YouTube.
I appreciate y'all letting me be a part of this. I'm excited.
I love, I like his choice of outfits a little better than yours, Mark.
Yeah, he's definitely more in the spirit than we are here, unfortunately. But
I'm
yes,
being honest. It's all I have. I'm being serious. It is all I have.
Awesome.
It's all West Virginia stuff.
Absolutely. So, Wren, after you spent time at North Texas and accomplished so many things there, you now are just getting your feet wet, just getting broken in here in Morgantown. What drew you to this job? What have you found to be unique about West Virginia athletics culture and football in particular?
Yeah, when I first got the call, I honestly didn't know a lot. In fact, when the search firm called me, their first question was, "Do you have any interest in West Virginia?" I said, "Well, I definitely have an interest in learning a lot more." I said, "I've been in the state a couple of times because North Texas was in the same conference as Marshall, but I had not been to Morgantown. I've seen West Virginia play because growing up in Big 12 country and having one of my degrees from Oklahoma State, I was familiar with the tradition of the program and the pride of the program. But other than that, didn't know a lot. And you have to add into that, normally an AD search process develops over sometimes 3 to 6 months. This one from start to finish, I think, was like 3 weeks. So was trying to learn as much as I can, but as I could at the time. But everybody I talked to as I started, you only call those people that you can really trust, because you don't want your name circulating or getting out early in the process. But everybody I called that had lived here, worked here, been around the program, been around the leadership of the university, just raved about it. And I think for me, it was really the characteristics of the way that the residents of West Virginia, the state, were described, and the people around Morgantown. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and it was like they were describing the people I grew up with, and so that kind of got it off to a good start, and then just dug deeper and deeper on the athletics side. I asked the questions of, what are we doing well, where are we struggling, can we win at a high level, and everybody I talked to that I trust that really knew something about WVU just had great things to say about the history of the program, about what it means to the state and to the people. It's unique here in that the university probably represents more than anything else hope for the state. It does life-changing work. It gives people degrees. We do groundbreaking research. We're one of the primary recruiters of outside businesses into this state. And so it's fairly unique to just have, even though there are other universities in the state, one real flagship university that drives so much of the state's progress in the economy. And so then when you look at the athletic program, and that we're the primary conduit to rally people and to help them understand what's going on at the university, we're not the most important thing that happens here, but we are the best avenue to shine a light on the important things that's happening here. That's really unique. I talked to our SAC group, which is our Student Athlete Leadership Council, last night, and this question came up with them. And I said, there aren't 10 universities in the country, and there's 10,000 athletic programs, right? But there aren't 10 universities in the country that mean as much to their state as this one does, and that the athletic program means as much to branding the university as this one does. And that carries a lot of pressure, but it's also unique, and it makes the work that you do very rewarding. And so I think more than anything else, that drove my interest. And then, the most important part, just like everybody else, I have a wife at home, and I have 2 daughters. So I was raised by a single mother, so I've been around strong women all my life. But when I asked my wife about it, I didn't know her reaction. And to be candid, there's been other opportunities that she shut down. And from the start, she was really interested and intrigued by coming here. And same thing with her. The more she learned and the more she talked to people, the more interested she became.
We are glad to be joined by Wren Baker, West Virginia Vice President and Director of Athletics. Just got the job here in the last 6 weeks. One of the big narratives surrounding college football, college athletics over the last 10 to 15 years has, of course, been conference realignment and expansion. And you were in the midst of that, spearheaded the move at North Texas. Can you give us an idea of the mass of just logistics and financial and legal ramifications and everything involved in such a massive move?
Yeah, as I onboarded there at UNT, there was a couple of things that we were focused on. One was just getting better. North Texas has 44,000 students. It's in the DFW Metroplex. We had pretty good facilities, although some need work, and we were able to accomplish most of that. But our tradition was not great. I think we were winning about 38% of our contests when you aggregate the win-loss records of head-to-head sports across the athletic department. And by the time we left, we had 5 consecutive years where that was 60% or better. So we're able to make a lot of progress. So we were focused on how can we, inside of Conference USA, become better, right? And there was no reason for us not to compete at a high level. But at the same time, I didn't, I'm not going to pretend to be Nostradamus and predict the future, but I knew conference realignment was also coming. So we actually engaged with a third party and kind of quietly got all of the rubric and metrics that was used to make decisions on conference realignment across the country over the last 5 to 10 years prior to my arrival there. And we took that and we plugged all of our rankings and all of our things into those to see where we fell short and where we graded out pretty well. And as we built our strategic plan, we didn't make it publicly known what we were doing, but we were definitely trying to position ourselves to be attractive for realignment. Then as it become more and more obvious that it was probably going to happen sooner rather than later, I'm talking about leading up to OU Texas and their decision that started some dominoes. We built out a website and pamphlets and collateral materials that highlighted the areas where we knew we were strong based upon what people had used in the past. And the areas where we had challenges or we weren't as strong, we left those out and continued to try and focus on getting better. But I say all that to say so much of that, you have to be proactive instead of reactive. And looking back at North Texas, I'm glad that we were able to move into the American. But I think what I'm most proud of, even if it hadn't worked out, is that when the shoe dropped with OU Texas, we were 90% of the way there in terms of our preparation and the build out of our collateral material. So we had our stuff to people before probably anybody else had even engaged somebody to look at it. And I think that really helped us, and it was very beneficial for us.
Wren, when you look at West Virginia's role and place in college football in particular, that's what we focus on here. But of course, you've got the entire athletic landscape in mind. One of the challenges I find for West Virginia would be the Big 12 is completely removed geographically from West Virginia. West Virginia is an outlier. Now you've got 4 schools joining the Big 12 in expansion, and Cincinnati creates some connection there, some natural rivalry there. As you look at West Virginia and the new Big 12, how well do you think the university's positioned athletically and in football in particular?
Yeah, I think we're positioned really well. And it's one of the things that I talked to coaches who had been here and knew about the institution about as I looked at the job. There were coaches on this staff I'd worked with at North Texas. There were coaches who had spent time at this institution that I knew. So I asked all of them, like, can we compete in the Big 12? And the answer was universally yes. The travel is a challenge at times, but you can overcome that. And I think sometimes you can overplay that in the minds and the psyche of your team and of your coaches and just the people around your program. And so, the travel shouldn't be an excuse. We're on planes. Let's get good planes with good Wi-Fi and get some academic work while we're there. And then the next day, maybe we don't have to do as much tutoring. There are solutions around that. That doesn't have to be a negative thing for us. But I think our recruiting footprint is different. And I will tell you, I mean, we sat at North Texas in a top 5 market for recruitment of potential student athletes in every sport. I mean, Dallas-Fort Worth is a top 5 producer of talent in every sport. Yet the history at UNT was not very good. So, and I always tell people, everybody recruits these student athletes. Everybody in the country recruits Dallas-Fort Worth. And so I think when you look at a lot of the Big 12, they're bunched in some talent-rich areas, but they're all selling the same thing, the same conference, the same type of thing. You take our geographic situation, I think that can be a positive because we're not stuck in the same recruiting footprint. We can sell a conference like the Big 12. We can sell those experiences, the balanced nature of the conference. And yet we're not bumping heads with everybody. I think Cincinnati coming in the league will help to develop a rivalry. It'll be interesting, too, to see because we recruit Ohio pretty hard. So we've always beaten Cincinnati, being in the same conference. I would imagine some of those head-to-head battles will be a little bit more difficult in the recruitment process. And I say always, I think, talking to the coaches, most of the time if we've been recruiting against Cincinnati, we've won those recruiting battles. And so, I think there'll be pros and cons, but even the recruiting battles plays into the rivalry, and having a close geographic rival, I think will increase our fans' enthusiasm about the conference. So you'll learn with me, I tend to focus on the positive. I'm not somebody who spends a lot of time dwelling on negative things that you can't change. There's a book that John Gordon wrote called The Energy Bus. And the concept is basically you decide what kind of energy you let on your bus. And negative energy, I try to keep it out of my life. I don't block people on Twitter, but I mute people like crazy. So I give you about 2 times of saying something that I think is off base, and then you're muted. But I think for me, are there challenges for us being a geographic outlier? Yes, but for every challenge, if you just change your perspective, you can turn it into a positive. And the long and short of it is, I think we can be very competitive in the Big 12 conference, compete for conference championships.
I 100% agree with that. I got one question.
Absolutely.
A lot of people, whenever you bring in a new person and they're looking at the university, they want to know, what did you like about it? What was, I want to ask, what's something that West Virginia needs to work on as far as the athletic department goes, whether it's facilities, academics, I don't know, whatever the case may be. What was something that you saw that you were like, we need to work on that?
Yeah, I would say, there were a lot of very positive things. Even now, as I'm still going through assessments, and I visit with all the senior staff members, and I'm doing deeper dives with all of our head coaches one-on-one. I think I've got 3 or 4 of those left to do. I think we provide a lot of great experience for student athletes. I think we need to do a better job. I always use the term, there's activity and there's strategy. And in terms of taking student athletes and preparing them for life, we probably need a more cohesive strategy across the department. And I'm not a big believer, even if you're on the same team, that a freshman wants to hear the same kind of programming in terms of life skills and financial preparation and career preparation and mock interviews and all that. A freshman's on a different place with those things than a senior. And so I really like the concept of developing a 4-year curriculum, understanding that transfers are a big part of that. We got to figure out a way to bridge the gap with transfers in and out. But so that when you walk away from here, kind of that 4th year, we're giving you programming that's getting you ready for the workforce. And of all the criticisms that people want to level against the NCAA, and I think some are fair and there's a lot that's not, I do think being a student athlete's hard. It occupies a lot of your time. And we need to make sure that we're doing a really good job with a 4-year comprehensive, um, skills-based curriculum, so that when a student athlete graduates and their pro career is over, they're prepared to enter the workforce. And I could go on about that forever. I think another thing that we should look at doing is creating regional career centers, so that when their career is over and they're finally ready to do an internship or start to work on their interview skills, they could go somewhere and still be on a scholarship and a stipend, and do an internship and actually get ready to do those kinds of things. I think the other thing that is a challenge for us is we have some sports here. Our team facilities in some of our sports, particularly football, men, women's basketball, baseballs, and we have some sports have great facilities. But we have some sports that are, we have not done anything facility wise substantial in a long time. And, that's a real opportunity for us, and we need to develop a comprehensive plan. Every student athlete and coach that comes in here, we don't have infinite resources, but we ought to have a plan for elevating that program to championship status. And so I think that's something you'll see us spending some time on this first year, is having that plan, because you never know when somebody's going to walk in off the street and they have a passion for rowing or for tennis or for track and field, whatever the sport may be. And if you don't have a vision, it's hard to capture their support. So and then just the last thing is our team facilities, particularly in our revenue sports. I mean, you look at what we have for football and basketball in their day-to-day usage for the team. Those facilities are competitive with anybody in the country. We do lack for revenue seating opportunities. And the longer that we delay that, the more it puts us behind, because if you had built suites and club seats 30 years ago, maybe it didn't put a lot of cash into your annual operating budget because you're paying debt service and stuff, but those things would be almost paid for now. And that would be real revenue. And so we have to, at some point, figure that piece out, because that's going to be really important for us, maybe not in the next year or two, but it'll be real important 20, 25 years from now, that we're able to capture the same kind of premium revenue that other institutions can.
I like that phrase, championship status.
If you can compete for championships in the Big 12, like we're seeing it, you're relevant nationally. You're competitive.
Exactly.
Wren, you talked about meeting with the various coaches. Being a leader, one of the big responsibilities and the key points is being able to identify talent and identify leadership abilities in others. And then, of course, surround yourself with good people. So how does that evaluation process go in regards to the various coaches? And of course, we're focused on football here, in regards to your approach to evaluating that position and that role.
Yeah, I think you have to spend a lot of time around the program. You have to spend a lot of time with the student athletes to see, to have a real feeling for how their experience is. You got to be in the locker room before and after wins and losses, and see, how what kind of coaching is going on, how the message is being received. I'm going to spend 2 or 3 days over at football and spend 30, 45 minutes with every single full-time staff member over there. I just want to know them a little bit, get their observations, see if there's things that we could be doing different, that we, that from an administrative standpoint, a staff standpoint. And then, I think you, as an AD, you're constantly just asking questions. I don't make decisions on assistant coaches. I never have in 20 years. If I know more about who we need on a coaching staff than our head coach, then that's a problem that I'm not going to fix. That's a whole different solution than, and so, but I do ask a lot of probing questions and make sure that we're coming from the right thought process, that it's well thought out, and that there's logic and reasoning behind the decisions that we make. And so I think it's really just spending a lot of time. And the most expensive thing you can do in college athletics is to lose. The second most expensive thing you can do is to churn coaches nonstop. And if you're doing both of those, you're losing and you're churning coaches. You really have an upside down model. We saw that at Kansas for a good number of time, where they were paying at times 3 or more coaches and weren't able to win and pull in revenue. So you got to be sure when you make those decisions that they're well thought out, that you've been analytical, strategic, and that you're not emotional and reactive. I tell fans all the time, I understand when fans are emotional and reactive. I'm that way when I watch teams where I'm not the athletic director. But at WVU, I'm paid to be thoughtful, analytical, deliberate, because when I make a decision, although any of us can make one that doesn't go the way we thought it would, you need to have as much confidence as possible that it's the right decision.
The current financial allotment given to Neil Brown's staff is reported to be around $3.8 million. And based on some of the competition within the Big 12 and also in the region, some of the other staffs are in that $5 to $8 million range. What is the best way to address that?
Yeah, we've had donors who have been willing to step up and help that. And so, even in my conversations with Neil this year, without committing a dollar figure, I just always said, "Hey, I want you to give me a plan, and don't worry about the money right now. I just want to see what the plan would be, and then we'll figure out if it's the right plan. If we need more money, we'll go ask for that." And I think we could secure that. So. But yes, it's something that we've got to be focused on. It's not it in and of itself. Throwing money at something doesn't necessarily elevate you, And so I think as you look to the future, every decision is connected. And so you take the 10 members of the Big 12 today, and we're, in those bottom 2 or 3 from an operating budget standpoint. Now, you take travel out of that, we're going to spend more on travel. And because of our geographic location, probably going to spend a little more on recruiting. So there are some buckets of significant expense that, we're going to allocate. And so every decision is connected. The last few days, basketball-wise, I've had some fans that have messaged me wanting me to move more students into the lower bowl of the arena. Well, I would love the environment that would create. I would hate the revenue loss that would create, and we have a revenue problem. So all of those decisions are interconnected, and so but I think for us, increasing the assistance pool is definitely going to be a strategic priority moving forward. And if we get to a place this year, we're doing it right now, gets us somebody that in the door that we feel would make a difference in the program, then we'd figure that out now. I think we have donors who are capable and willing to do that. And so, I think we have, in all my years at North Texas, I can't remember a year where we didn't increase the assistance pool from one year to the next. And so I think you just got to have a long-term goal and understanding of, hey, let's start winning. As we win, we know we're going to earmark a certain amount of this new revenue for football, and a significant portion of that towards staff retention.
GBD, I've got one other serious question. Then I would like to hit Wren up to close it out on more of a feel-good type of question, if you've got anything else.
No, I agree with him. I really like what he said about the plan, because donors, before they shell out the money, they do want to hear a plan. So I agree with you 100%. And I'm having to put my mic on mute because my cats are going crazy right now.
So Wren, I guess with NIL, the question is, to me, the fall of 2020, the pandemic situation really unveiled how college athletics work and where the decisions are being made. And each conference works to its own best interest. They make the decisions. And there's not a overarching governing body to college football, or a college football commissioner or college athletics commissioner. And so we see everybody working to their own best interests, and that's completely understandable. So when it comes to NIL, where is that? I think we can all generally agree that this is a good thing for the athlete. this is something that just affords them the same opportunities that we all have in society. So why shouldn't they have that opportunity as well? But it currently, at least on the surface, has the look of being out of control to a certain extent. So, where's that leadership going to come from that's going to kind of rein this in and give it a little bit more structure and guideline to it?
Yeah, it's a great question. NIL opportunities in and of themselves are a positive. And I've said this repeatedly. We should be in the business of providing opportunities for student athletes, and NIL is a significant opportunity. The highly unregulated environment we're in, and you can find media folks that will dispute this, but is not good for student athletes. And I put myself in the same position. When you give somebody a large sum of cash that has a very finite amount of time attached to it, and it's not there's no any kind not we're all trying to do some education, but there's no real requirements for how you're utilizing that money or when it's dispensed, nor, because the schools aren't involved, are there any kind of assurances on the back end. There's a couple of schools out there who paid huge NIL sums last year. Who knows exactly what there is, because the rumor mill exaggerates them, but who didn't have great years and whose donors have cut back on their willingness to be involved in NIL. And you see lots of kids in the transfer portal from one or two of those institutions without calling them by name. Student athletes, I will guarantee you there are young people, because I was a college student and I grew up very poor in Oklahoma, raised by a single mother. I know when I got my scholarship check, I went to school on academic scholarship, and also it was Pell eligible, my Pell Grant check. I know how I spent that money. I mean, I bought everybody around at the pub. I was living life large. And so you do that and you develop some really bad financial habits that stick with you for a significant period of time. And I'm really concerned about that for our student athletes. You pay money down on a car or whatever, and you got enough cash flow at the time to make the monthly payment. Well, what happens in a couple of years if you get injured and you can't play? And and so we really I worry about that. I worry about the highly unregulated nature of NIL. My hope would be that the new president, Governor Baker, can come in. No relation, but hopefully Governor Baker can come in and bring everybody together and talk about what can we do to improve the experience of student athletes. What can we do to take care of them? They deserve to be taken care of. But what can we also do that doesn't have this wild, wild west unregulated environment where multiple people have their hands involved, and they're not very many of them that actually care about student athletes. You don't know. I was talking to one of our donors here recently who's involved in professional sports, and he was comparing the job that I have and the job that he has now. And I said, the only difference is yours is very regulated. You know what every player in the entire system entire league makes. You know what every contract looks like. You know what everybody at a certain position makes. We have none of that data. We have people who are promising things to student athletes that are not getting delivered. We probably have people associated with student athletes who are saying they were promised things that may or may not have even been promised. It's such a wild situation to be in right now. And so my hope will be we can bring some sanity to NIL. I'm not somebody who wants to see it go away. I think it's good, but nobody, no other industry in the country works the way this one does right now. And we really got to get our arms around that. And I hope that starts with the commissioners and the new NCAA president. I think if they all work together, that we can bring some sanity to the process.
Wren, finally for me, the obvious highs to being an athletic director, I have to think, are hoisting a conference championship banner or trophy, or putting the shovel in dirt for a new shiny new facility, those kind of obvious things. But I got to think with all the relationships that you have to build and cultivate, that there are some really good stories involving those type of moments, those kind of accomplishments that don't get celebrated, that aren't out there for the media to talk about, that really make the job worthwhile.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you mentioned um, hoisting championships and building facilities, but I always think commencement is a really special day. And most universities, there's a certain sash that they give their student athletes, so you can identify those kids as they're walking up and get a chance to see them walk across the stage, and those are always special memories. I also think some of my favorite times are the student athlete. If you've ever been with a student athlete in the immediate aftermath of a catastrophic injury, a torn ACL,
Guys, I
Achilles.
got to run. My kid's school is calling me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for being here, Chris.
Why today? Why today? But it was nice to meet you and nice to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank you for your
look forward
time.
to seeing you. Thank you. If you've ever been with a student athlete in the immediate aftermath of an injury, it's so emotional. And to see, and then you go to the training room every day and you see them rehabbing, and they go through this range of emotions. I mean, it's just, you can see it in their face, the depression and anxiety immediately after the injury, and then they start to see hope and post surgery, and they start to do rehab. And then when you get to see them back on the field and they have a great night, or they play an important part of a big win. It's one of the special things about college athletics. There's declining opportunities for young people in the world, in the environment we live in today, to reconcile having team goals with individual goals, to take constructive criticism and feedback and get better, to fight through adversity, whether that's being down in a game or having an injury that's ends your season. And college athletics provides those moments every day. And it's why I love the job. It's why I always have stuck with it, even in the hard times, and even a few times when I had chances to work in pro sports or even outside of sports. I always stuck with this because those opportunities are really important. There's a reason why Fortune 500 companies love to recruit student athletes, and it's because they've developed those skills and that skill set during their careers here, and we get a front row seat to watching that every day. And not every season ends in a championship, but I made this remark here recently. I have been proud of every team that we've ever had, everywhere I've ever been, regardless of record, because there are those individual success stories like that in every team. And so that's what makes the job probably the most rewarding and the most fun.
Wren Baker, West Virginia Vice President, Director of Athletics, just been on the job here for 6 weeks or so. Wren, you've got so much on your plate. You're trying to still navigate some things there in the lay of the land. So we appreciate you taking the time to stop by and share some tremendous insight into the job and the role and your personal outlook on things. So we appreciate it so much.
Hey, I've enjoyed it very much, and we'll do it again sometime.